Aloha everybody! Thank you for joining me for this live. I'm just gonna double check that it's working. I believe it is. And yes, looks good. Okay, so we are here today to talk a little bit about how to turn off your busy brain and how to turn on your highest self, the elite within you. And I am really excited to be here to share with you today. Gosh, I have lots to say about this topic. What I'm hoping to share with you today is really how to quiet that mental chatter. In yoga, we call it chitta vritti, which means literally it's like the chattering mind, right? Which is the job of our mind. If you think about it, our mind's job is to wander and to just be sort of chattering with thoughts. It has constant thoughts. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to give you like a framework for understanding some of those thoughts. And I want to help you to really like rein in that anxious overthinking so that you can start to be more present in your own life and your business and your work, whatever it is that you do, so that you can be present in your life with your family, with your kids, right, with your partner. And we want to be able to really, create your own personal paradise. That's the goal. So using my embodied paradise method, it's basically following these three pillars, these three steps of creating our own personal paradise through these self-soothing strategies that I'm going to share with you. And these really counteract stress. These are strategies that counteract that anxious overthinking survival mode and basically recalibrate your brain and your body to get you operating at your highest potential, right? So like less time imagine if you had less time that you were spending up here in your overthinking mind, you'd have more time to be with the people you love, right? That's really the goal here. So the second pillar of this embodied paradise method is that we're going to practice consciously reframing our anxious overthinking patterns. Now, we're going to do that so that we can wake up every day feeling more empowered, feeling more aware, more focused, and really just kind of conscious of opportunities that would otherwise be buried in anxiety and overwhelm, right? But really, I find that the first step in that is the awareness. Like we have to actually build awareness of our thought patterns. And as we learn how to then reframe the thought patterns, we learn to speak to ourselves with kindness and with love, right? And that really helps us to attract healthier, more conscious relationships, to feel courageous enough to take big risks in our life, right? Like whatever that may be for you. That might be having a really difficult conversation with a partner. That might be asking for a raise at work, right? But building confidence within yourself because you're treating yourself with love. It makes a world of difference. And then the third pillar is elite embodiment. It's learning how to embody your highest self to experience a more present, more fulfilling, more expansive life, right? And really business. So both your personal life and your professional life, so that you can sort of step into that next level where you're living the life that you want to be living, the life of your dreams. And the goal here, like my elite embodiment practices, strengthen your intuition because essentially, rather than looking outward to things outside of ourselves, we're tuning inward, right? We really tap into our highest potential so that we can actually start to make decisions more quickly, more easily, because we're tapped into our intuition. And that actually boosts our productivity, our efficiency, right? Ultimately, our ability to be in service, to have impact, and to have income, and to elevate that income. So all of these strategies, this embodied paradise method, helps ultimately to quiet the mental chatter, but actually it does so much more than that. And that's what I want to share with you today. So a little bit about me, right? Like who am I to be telling you about all this? So my name is Sarah Slater Snyder. I am a licensed therapist in private practice, and I'm also a registered yoga teacher and an elite embodiment coach. I live in Hawaii. I've been here for about 20 years. I fell in love with this lifestyle of this island paradise here. And I actually was a high school counselor and teacher for about 12 years before starting my own private therapy practice. I've been running girls and women's groups for decades. And I founded the Women's Wellness Circle back about 1 year ago, actually, really for the purpose of wanting there to be a safe space for women to come together in sisterhood and to support one another really in elevating our mental health and wellness, right? As a therapist, I know that there's very limited access right now to mental health practitioners. And so I just wanted to find a creative way to be able to support you and to be able to hold space really for the women in my life, both in person and virtually. So I have really helped so many women. I've worked with so many women and girls actually, because that's what I specialize with in my private practice, are teen girls and young adult women. And I've really worked with them to help reframe their anxious overthinking. And within my wellness practice specifically, we apply that embodied paradise method so that we can essentially train your busy brain and your body to kind of shift out of that anxious overthinking mode into sort of this calm safety mode, if you want to say, to which really helps you to achieve more like optimal performance and health and balance so that you can embody your highest self. So, all right, let's get into it. So I want to start by sharing a little bit. This is actually a therapy technique. It's called the wise mind. It comes from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. And I love this. I share this all the time. This basically is a model where if we look at our emotional mind, so every one of us, right, we all have these different parts of ourselves. Hey, Jess, thanks for tuning in. Hi, Kate. Hi, Erin. How's it going? So glad you guys are here. So what I want to share with you is, as we're trying to understand our mind, right? The anxiety, the anxious overthinking, that part of us that just like where our mind just goes and goes and goes and can't turn off, that's coming from what we call our emotional mind, right? Or our irrational mind. And if we're trying to understand our brain, so just like a quick bit of sort of brain science, and I'm going to be sharing more about this actually next week when I debrief the book Mindsight. But Dan Siegel uses this model, the hand model of the brain, and he basically just helps you to understand that, you know, if this is your brain, right, the bottom half here, like this little, where your wrist meets your hand, that's your brainstem. That's responsible for all of your like automatic survival functions, heart rate, breathing, right, like the things we don't even think about, digestion, body temperature. The inner part where your thumb is, right, if you tuck your thumb in there, that's your limbic system or your amygdala. And the amygdala is the part that is responsible for your emotional mind. It's the intense emotions, processes fear, anger, aggression, all different emotional experiences happen here. And as we wrap our hand around, so again, if this is sort of like the prefrontal cortex that sits behind the forehead, imagine this is the reasonable mind, right? So we've got the emotional mind, which is essentially like the limbic system, and it connects to that brainstem, right? So it's the emotional part of ourselves, and then we've got the more rational, reasonable, logical part of ourselves that sits behind our forehead. And so why that matters is because when we are in our emotional mind, it is very, very difficult to talk yourself down, right? And that's why my embodied paradise method starts with creating your own paradise, actually starts with calming the body, learning these soothing somatic strategies that calm the body. Because if we are in an elevated state and that amygdala is going off, we do what Dan Siegel calls flipping our lid, meaning that we become highly irrational, highly emotional, right? We can't think logically because our upstairs brain, that upper frontal lobe, is no longer online. It's not connected to the downstairs brain. And so essentially what we want is this DBT model says that we have to acknowledge that our emotional mind exists. That's its job. It's to be there. It's to, you know, to chatter, really. That's the job of the emotional mind. Then we have to acknowledge that we also have the capacity to think very logically and reasonably and rationally. But we have to quiet down basically our fight or flight system, right? Which is sort of that sympathetic nervous system of the body. And in order to do that, what this wise mind model says is that by acknowledging that both parts of ourself, the emotional mind and the reasonable mind, exist, where they overlap, that is our wise mind. And so what we want, right, is to be operating from a place of our wise self. And that's really what, like, embodying the elite within you, that's part of what that entails, is learning strategies to tap into your highest and wisest self, right? And So as we understand what's going on in our downstairs brain and our upstairs brain, how many of you, right, I imagine, have flipped your lid at times, gone into a total state of like irrational panic or anxiety or just overthinking? We all do it because we're human, right? And so whenever we get into that anxious place, what I just want you to know is all of us experience anxiety. It's just we don't all experience it to levels that create dysfunction in our life. So anxiety itself is just sort of an intense, excessive, persistent worry, right? Which we all have at times. But you probably notice that with that overthinking, there's actually a physiological component, meaning that our heart rate elevates, our breathing increases, we go into survival mode or fight or flight mode, essentially, because it's our body's way of protecting itself. It's our body's way of literally like preparing to fight or flight whatever the thing is, the stressor that's worrying us. So, and there's more than just the fight or flight, right? There's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn as responses to that stressor or to that trauma, whatever it is that's happening. So there's good anxiety. There's actually like good stress, adaptive stress that helps us to like, prepare for things and helps us to motivate ourselves. And then it starts to become like maladaptive or unhealthy when it creates like dysfunction and distress in our life. And so, certainly as a therapist, I do believe in the power of therapy, and I absolutely one of the techniques that I use in my therapy practice is what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'm just going to teach you like a tiny piece of that today. But I highly encourage you, if you are struggling with anxiety that is like debilitating in your life and making it difficult to function, seek out the support of a therapist. I really encourage you to do that. With that said, if your anxiety is not crippling, but it is something you struggle with, this is where I think I can be of service to you and I can help you. And it all really starts with, again, understanding our body, understanding what's happening within us. And so, as I was mentioning, like, here's the good news, right? Our body is like a well-oiled machine. We have an accelerator, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight that speeds everything up, heart rate, breathing, right? Gets us ready to deal with a stressor. And then we've also got the parasympathetic, which is like the brakes. It's the part of us that starts to slow things down. It calms the body, right? It's the rest and digest response. And so what we have to realize is that we actually have control over shifting out of that sympathetic anxiety mode into that calming parasympathetic mode. We just have to learn how to tap into the tools that actually are within us, right? And that's what I want to teach you. So there is, okay, I'm debating how much I want to go into this. I go way more in depth. Those of you who sign up for my recalibration retreat that's coming up, I'll go more in depth in this. And within my program, The Abounding Woman, I go way more in depth. But this is like a little sneak peek. So there is a key, it's a nerve that runs through the body. It's called the vagus nerve, and it is, honestly, it is like the key to mental health. And why it's the key and how it can unlock a completely different experience for you is that when you learn how to build what's called vagal tone, when you learn how to stimulate this part of your nervous system, it basically builds resilience. It builds like an adaptability to stress, so that when you're in a stressful situation, your body may start, going into this anxiety mode, and you may have some of that irrational overthinking, but the minute that we catch it, we tap into our breath, we tap into some of the techniques that I'll teach you, and that allows us to shift out of it, to slow down that fight or flight, activate the parasympathetic, the rest and digest, hit the brakes on our body basically, and start to slow things down so that we can feel calm, so that we can actually start to use more of that like rational upstairs brain, right? And that is the key to being able to actually quiet the mental chatter. But we have to first calm the body, okay? So a couple things that you can do here to calm and basically stimulate that vagus nerve. Breathing is your best friend, right? That is the simplest way, especially deep exhalation breaths. When we take an exhalation breath, it basically, because the vagus nerve runs through the diaphragm, the diaphragm releases, allows that vagus nerve, upon exhalation, it stimulates it, sends a message to the brain that basically hits the brakes on that whole stress response. right? And so when we do some really long, deep exhalation breaths, it will calm down your nervous system. It will slow the fight or flight response. So deep breaths, that's one way, right? You can also, a super simple one that most people don't think about is to take contrast showers, meaning like 3 minutes of warm water to 1 minute cold water, 3-to-1 ratio, right? And the cold water, think about it. When you take a nice cold shower, what's your first instinct? Most of us go, and we take a deep sigh, right? And it's actually the sigh that essentially stimulates that vagus nerve and quiets the mental chatter and helps us start to create our own paradise, right? To get out of that stress mode. So those are a couple of the ways. There's so many more. I mean, singing, chanting, humming, bee's breath, if you've learned that from me, that's a wonderful one. Maybe we'll do that at our recalibration retreat. Meditation, like there are so many different tools, and one of my favorites is restorative yoga and the practice of yoga nidra. And I'm just going to talk for a moment about some of these benefits, because if you've never done restorative yoga before, like honestly, and Erin, maybe you can chime in here since you participated last time in the recalibration retreat, right? Like whatever you remember from that, or what helped you, what stood out, to you. Restorative yoga is this incredible practice of literally lying in these reclined supported postures, and it actually, because our whole body starts to just surrender, really, and we release our control and we start to deepen our breathing and our whole body lets out a giant sigh, it's so soothing. It's one of the most soothing practices that I found for anxiety. That coupled with yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is the science of literally yogic sleep. So it's like the art of deep relaxation. It's a guided meditation. In fact, I'll just read this. There's a book called Yoga Nidra, which just basically describes it as a state of profound physiological relaxation and metabolic rest in which there is a fundamental release and readjustment of the controlling mechanisms of the autonomic nervous system, which is literally what I've just been talking about, right? So it's so restorative and calming. Thanks, Erin. And totally. And so Yoga Nidra involves this like systematic rotation of awareness throughout the body. It involves practices of gratitude, intention, breathing, right? Imagery, visualization, and it's inducing this just total relaxation. They actually say, so there have been all these studies done, and they say that 1 hour of Yoga Nidra is as beneficial for your body as 4 hours of regular sleep. Like that is how restorative it is. So I used to teach this actually to my students, to high school students, back when I was a high school counselor. They loved it. In fact, I created an entire restorative yoga studio within my school because kids and faculty were just loving it so much. They wanted like all restorative yoga and yoga nidra. So a couple benefits of this, right? There's so many, but obviously it relaxes your mind and body, relieves muscular, mental, and emotional tension, counteracts the stress response by doing exactly what we've been talking about, by inducing that relaxation response, actually reduces chronic pain, chronic physical pain, and helps to manage and heal emotional pain. It reduces anxiety, it elevates your mood. I mean, there's just so many. It actually facilitates weight loss, which is super interesting. And the reason it does that is because it lowers your cortisol levels. So it's something that is honestly, like one woman who did my recalibration retreat said she had the best sleep of her life after that retreat. So it really will improve your sleep, your well-being. It's super gentle on the body, and it's super safe. So whether you're pregnant or you have, back issues or you're postpartum or whatever, there's so many, this practice is something that can benefit you no matter what age, what's going on in your body. It is incredible. And I have to say that Yoga Nidra itself honestly is like a holistic prescription. It's the best thing I prescribe it to my therapy clients, honestly, for anxiety, depression, insomnia, chronic pain. I mean, it is magical. So I highly, highly recommend that you give that a try. Even if you can't attend my recalibration retreat live, consider signing up so that you can at least get the recording, do it in your own timing. All right, so we've been talking all about the body, how to calm the body, right? That's the first step of my embodied paradise method, is creating your own paradise using all these somatic soothing techniques. The second step is really this process of conscious reframing. Like once our body is calm, then we can actually start to operate from that upstairs brain. We can start to think a little bit more rationally. And so what we want, from that place is to start identifying our unhealthy thought patterns and to challenge our limiting beliefs so that we don't stay stuck in like that loop of anxious overthinking. Like how many of you have ever been stuck in that? Feel free to share, drop in the comments something that you anxiously overthink about. I know many of us find ourselves there. So what we want to do is learn to identify it, but then learn how to reframe it, right? And so we want to be able to speak to ourselves with a different, instead of this like negative inner dialogue, we want to create a much healthier self-talk. So quickly, I'm going to just share, I mentioned that CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. This is just a really, a very powerful and evidence-based strategy and tool that therapists use to basically help clients understand the connection between their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors. And so this is a little bit tied into my conscious reframing technique, but what I incorporate is both the process of like metacognition, where we're thinking about our thinking, and Anna Marie, I will drop the link to my recalibration retreat. I would love to have you there. And if I don't get to do it right now, I will do it at the end of this live. So where was I going with this? So understanding the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The first step is awareness. The second step actually is that we have to, and this is tricky for a lot of us, we have to practice non-judgment. So many of us judge ourselves for our thinking, and that's where we start to get stuck and we can't get out of the loop. When we can shift into self-compassion, into gratitude, I have a whole live on compassion exercises for yourself, that changes everything. So if you want to reduce your anxious thinking, you've got to become more aware of your thoughts. You need to practice connecting your thoughts to your feelings, like understanding, how does that thought make me feel, right? And then once I feel that, how do I behave? What actions follow that, right? To build awareness of cause and effect. And then we start to self-reflect. We start to become more aware of our thinking. We're practicing metacognition, right? We're starting to practice the art of non-judgment. And in order to do this, we really have to get out sometimes of our own way. We have to get out of our own mind and into our body using, again, coming back to step one, some of those soothing somatic strategies that help you to ground into your body, right? So I have a whole host of different techniques that I teach my clients, from, from deep breathing to simple grounding technique I'll teach you now. So this one is basically starting to become aware of your five senses. So I literally will have my clients, if they're starting to go into an anxious moment where they're like overthinking, right? Notice it, come back to the present, and how to do that is literally start to just like notice what's going on around you and observe, become an observer of your experience, and notice something I see in this moment, something I hear in this moment, something I feel in this moment or touch in this moment, something I taste, something I smell. Go through your five senses, and that will ground you into the present moment. When we're in anxious overthinking, we're generally overthinking about the future or the past. We're not present, right? So you can ground through that simple strategy using your five senses. So within my, I don't know how much I'm going to get into this at the recalibration retreat, but in my group program, The Abounding Woman, I go way more in depth into helping you understand some of the cognitive distortions that many of us sort of experience. I'll give you just a couple of examples just so you get a sense of what I'm talking about here, but learning to build awareness of when we are jumping to conclusions. So there's two different types of jumping to conclusions, right? One cognitive distortion is when we're mind reading. We're assuming that we can that we think we know what other people are thinking about us. Another one, so that might be, and again, I should point out, there's no evidence that anyone is thinking about us, but we, again, sort of mind read and make assumptions, right? Another way that we do that, so those assumptions, I should say, could be anything like, she doesn't like me, she thinks I'm boring, she thinks I'm ugly, she thinks this, that, or the other, right? I see this a lot with my younger clients. But I think all of us experience this. And then another one that a lot of us experience is what's called fortune telling, where basically we're like trying to predict the future. It's like when our mind is just going, and it's telling stories that haven't even happened yet about the future. That's fortune telling, right? So I'm, going to be single forever, or I'm never going to get that job, or whatever it is that you're like telling yourself, we got, again, come back to the present moment, right? Because we have no control over the future or the past. We only have the present moment. Yeah, so many of us, Anne-Marie, it's not just you, a lot of us experience that fortune telling. I'll share a couple more. So another big one is catastrophizing, right? We're minimizing, basically we're sort of diminishing our own or other people's thoughts or feelings. That was stupid of me, or gosh, why does she make everything such a big deal, right? We're like minimizing the other person or ourselves. Or the opposite, we magnify, we catastrophize, we blow it out of proportion, or we like jump to sort of, basically we're exaggerating, going to like a worst case scenario. So this might be like, you don't hear back from someone, like a job interview, and you just automatically assume worst case, you didn't get the job, you're never going to get any job. And that's then when we start to overgeneralize. We take one event and we overgeneralize to multiple events. Right? So there's many ways that we start to get into this whole like overthinking cycle, lots of cognitive distortions. And again, if this interests you, I do have a live actually in our group on mindful or conscious reframing. But I go way in depth in this within my group program. So happy to share more about that if that interests you. But so some tools and techniques, right? Like I train my clients to start to keep a thought record, to start to become more aware of their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. That just means you start journaling, write it down. Whatever the irrational thought is, start to notice it without judgment, right? And then we catch it, we name it. We're like, oh, I'm fortune telling again, or there I go, I'm mind reading, right? And then we want to actually start to put those thoughts on trial and challenge some of those thoughts. Is there really evidence to support this irrational thought? What's a healthier thought I can tell myself? I have my clients make lists of all their irrational thoughts, and we go through one by one and we challenge them and we come up with healthier alternative thoughts. I'll be really honest, you guys, here. This is the reason that I created my radical self-love affirmation cards, honestly. It's because I found myself saying the same things over and over again to women, and we were challenging their irrational thoughts. And as we were doing this, literally like the healthier self-dialogue, it was the same statements over and over again. And so that's why I created these cards. And you can get these on my website, aboundingcircles.com. If you attend the recalibration retreat, you may win your own free affirmation card deck. So lots here that we can work with, but those are some strategies, right? And then sort of the last pillar of my embodied paradise method is that we actually use my elite embodiment practices to essentially help you step into your power. And I'm going to give you some examples of what it means to embody the elite within you, because that is really what I would call like an elite embodiment. So embodiment simply means coming home to yourself, right? And the elite part is really like we're coming home to our highest self, to our wisest self. Remember that wise mind that we were talking about at the beginning of this live? That's the goal of elite embodiment, is coming home to your highest and wisest self. And what that looks like is basically, it's like the full body, heart-led experience of being able to respond rather than react in a stressful situation, right? You develop this resilient adaptability to stress. It looks like actually slowing down your aging process and being able to feel more vibrant, more alive, like sexy in your skin again, because you are tapped into your intuition, you're tapped into your highest self, right? Elite embodiment looks like taking risks outside of your comfort zone. So basically saying yes to things, even though there may be some fear there. It's like leaning into the fear, learning how to say yes to yourself, right? Being able to ask for that raise that you've been wanting at work, being able to have the difficult conversation with your husband or your boss or your coworker. Just knowing your self-worth allows you to then have these difficult conversations and ask for what you need and put your needs first. Elite embodiment looks like being at the top of your game, you know, like reaching your highest potential. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's literally like moving towards self-actualization at the top. So that really, like, what that means is your vision for your life becomes your reality. That is elite embodiment. It also looks like, and this resonates with a lot of the women I work with, it looks like actually learning how to ask for what you're needing, meaning that you learn to put your needs first. You learn to release those codependent patterns or those perfectionistic patterns so that you can speak your truth, so that you can hold unapologetic boundaries, right? And you can actually create a life that you want, because you're not just saying yes to everything. You start learning how to be a little more discerning so that you can hold, you know, physical boundaries, but also emotional boundaries with the people in your life. It changes everything, right? And then lastly, elite embodiment looks like and feels like really receiving the love and the joy and the health and the wealth that is already yours, allowing that to freely flow to you. So shifting out of like a scarcity mindset into more of an abundance mindset, right? And if you haven't checked out, I do have an abundance meditation on my website, aboundingcircles.com. Feel free to go in and download that. And let's see, what else did I want to share? Oh, okay. So what I want to say, so just a little bit, I mean, there's so many ways that we tap into that elite embodiment, and to be totally honest, every woman is different, right? So what that looks like for you may look very different from what it looks like for someone else. But my clients are having incredible results and finally starting to live the life that they've been like dreaming about for themselves. Whether that means, you know, cutting out alcohol for a period of 30 days and then realizing you feel so good that you want to keep going. Or that means being able to finally, like I was saying, set these emotional boundaries so that you can have a healthy relationship, right? It looks a lot of different ways. So again, I sort of approach each client differently, depending on what strategies I think would best work for you. But if this interests you, if you want to learn more and you want to know how could I apply this embodied paradise to me and to my life, and what would this look like, Sarah, reach out to me. Like, I want to help you to start really like coming into your highest and wisest self, to embody that and to operate like a well-oiled machine like that, to get your body so that you're firing on all cylinders, right? Like you are optimizing your health. Like I want to help you get there. And so what I'd like to just invite you to is to, so a couple ways we can do this. I'd love to hop on a free pathway call with you and we can just chat, right? We'll just chat about what's going on in your life, kind of explore what you're doing right now to optimize your health and identify where the gaps are. And I'll share with you how my sort of approach, my embodied paradise method, can work for you, and what tools, you know, you may be needing to help you step into your next level, to kind of get you into your elite version of yourself. So that's one thing and I'll drop the link for that at the end of this, if you'd like a free pathway call. And then the second thing is sign up for my recalibration retreat. You guys, this is like a no-brainer. It's the lowest cost way to get access to me and to be able to experience this. And it's happening next Friday. We're 1 week out. And honestly, it's going to be such an incredible way to be able to tap into your highest and wisest self, to allow your body to create its own personal paradise. And you will, just by showing up live, you will also be entered into all the giveaways. So you can get your own radical self-love affirmation card, your own card deck for free. You can also get access to my Path to Paradise workbook for free. You will get 50% off of my group program, The Abounding Woman. Like, there's a lot of reasons to sign up for this thing, and I'm really excited to share with you. And this is also in celebration of our 1 year anniversary of our Women's Wellness Circle. So I appreciate you guys so much being here with me today. If you have any questions, if there's anything that I didn't answer that you're wondering, something that, you know, has just been sitting with you, or you're not quite sure, something I mentioned during this live, please feel free to comment or reach out to me, and I would be happy to connect with you privately, or in the chat, and we can talk, and I'm happy to answer more questions. So thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I hope you have a beautiful and happy Aloha Friday. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.